Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me as ever, it's Michael McCubbin, and for the first time in quite a while, it's James Wayne. Jimbo, how are you?
I'm good. I'm tired as expected. It feels weird to be back on. I feel very rusty. I feel like it's my first time again. I've been on about 3 shows in the past year and a half. And every time it feels the same. It feels like I'm just going to mess up horrendously. So we'll see how this one goes.
Absolutely not. No, as you all know, probably most of the fans know, Wayno's the new father. Well, relatively new father. Little Zach coming along. Apparently nearly walking. Exciting times.
Yeah, we're getting him into training soon. So
nice. Project Mbappe begins. McCubbs, how are you on this Thursday morning?
Not too bad. Dealing with a bit of a nightmare. The cat pissed on my bed last night. And this I forgot that I was having my boiler replaced this morning, so currently washing machine also out of action. so I'll be down the laundrette straight after this. Luckily there is a laundrette right at the end of my road, which I forgot about. So I will be down there after this.
Nice. I didn't know whether you wanted to mention that, so I just left it quite open. But
I think we've got to give the fans what they want. They love stories like that. So
absolutely, yeah. Get your vengeance on the cat this afternoon. Anyway, let's get into today's show, because we're talking about out-of-contract players your club should sign. These aren't current free agents. These are players coming to the end of their deals. And we've seen, obviously, this week that Rafa Varane has joined Man United. That deal was made a lot easier from a financial perspective, with him only having 1 year left on his deal at Real Madrid. There's speculation continuing about Paul Pogba and Kylian Mbappe. So it's clear that, with contracts going down, it makes a massive difference to the likelihood of a transfer being completed. So these are a list of players whose contract expires in 2022, who could therefore be snapped up for a minimal fee or an easier fee this summer. The Cubs, we're going to kick off with Leon Goretzka, who Man United have been linked with. It feels like a load of rubbish, really, but he does only have 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be speculation, isn't there, with a player like Leon Goretzka, who's obviously really been in the form of his life, hasn't he, in the last kind of 1.5 to 2 seasons. But yeah, I agree. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Builds Christian Falk, who obviously has a lot of contacts at Bayern, has claimed that Man United are offering him better terms than De Roten. Apparently, Goretzka wants to stay, but he wants to earn 20 million euros a year, which I think only Lewandowski earns. I think there's a kind of bracket of between 15 and 20 million that Lewandowski, Neuer, Kimmich and Sane, I believe, all earn. Or was it Kimmich and someone else? I think it's Müller, not Kimmich. And then I think Goretzka is in the kind of bracket below, along with Kimmich. And I think Kimmich will probably, end up earning more when he signs his new deal. But I guess with Goretzka, obviously he's a bit older. He's not as key to the side, I guess, or at least is not. He's not on the level of Kimmich. So I can see why perhaps the club are reluctant to take him into that bracket if reports are to be believed. Apparently they've only offered him 12 million euros, which I think still by Bayern standards is still a pretty hefty wage. Nevertheless, it just feels unlikely that he'll leave. I feel like Bayern very rarely lose players in this regard unless they really want them to go. I know Alaba left, but that was after like 10 years. I feel like losing Goretzka when he's at the peak of his powers would be a really big loss for them, especially considering they've signed a number of midfielders over the last few years who haven't really worked out. So yeah, I mean, obviously they got him on a free from Schalke back in 2018, but he has missed a number of games with injuries. I think he's missed like 31 games in total. So I guess in that sense, maybe they don't want to be spending, tying him down to a huge deal on massive wages, in the case that, in 2 years' time, suddenly he's, suddenly he misses like half a season or something. But nevertheless, yeah, he has been brilliant. He scored 5 goals and got 5 assists last season. He averages nearly 4 tackles and interceptions. He takes nearly over 2 shots a game. So yeah, he is very solid. But yeah, it does. The Man United links in particular don't make a lot of sense to me. Obviously, United are looking or should be looking at least for a defensive midfielder this summer. The kind of the more hybrid midfielder that they've been looking at is Eduardo Camavinga, who would potentially, I think, even be cheaper than Goretzka, and obviously is only 18. Is a lot more mouldable, and would be an incredibly exciting signing for United. I think Goretzka would also be a pretty exciting signing, but I think considering that they signed Van der Beek last term, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to then get in another kind of box-to-box midfielder who isn't, some kind of, wonder kid prospect who is a kind of player where it's just like, if you strike now, you'll just reap the benefits, or potentially reap, even bigger benefits. So, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me. Obviously, you'd take about a free if it came to next summer, but I just don't think that will happen. I think either he'll accept lower terms, because I personally can't see a club out there that need a player of his profile that much that they would offer him kind of 20 million euro kind of wages. So either he accepts lower terms, or they come to some sort of compromise, or I guess they get a fee for him this summer. But I can't really think of many teams who are that in need of those kind of players this year. I mean, like PSG already got Wijnaldum in on a free. Obviously he bolstered that midfield considerably. He's not the same kind of player as Goretzka, but he fills the same kind of spaces, doesn't he? Perhaps Real Madrid, they need to strengthen their midfield, obviously, but again, do they have the kind of money even to spend on a Goretzka style player this summer? I feel like there are other areas of that side which need more. Which need more working on, and also it just seems clear that they're just kind of saving up the pennies to eventually sign Mbappe as well. So I can't see Goretzka going anywhere this summer, if I'm honest. He would be a great pickup if you could get him for a low price, but I just can't see Bayern accepting a low fee for him. Again, I see this as something where a contract will probably be signed at the end of this summer, if not next season.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I just don't think there's any chance of Bayern letting him go this window. I think he'll probably sign that new deal, as you say. I actually got in a bit of trouble with Bayern fans this week, because in our Players the Fans Want Out script, which went out on Football Daily, I put Marc Roca in there, who obviously had a pretty difficult year, having joined from Espanyol last season. And Bayern fans were in the comments saying, no, we want Tolisso out, we want Cuisance out, who spent last season on loan at Marseille. So I might well have got that wrong, actually. But Marc Roca, just very little impact last year having joined. So, they seem like Marc Roca was supposedly more of the future under Nagelsmann, but he's got injured in pre-season, which is a bit of a shame for him as well. But James, let's move on to Aiden_1874 suggestion of Lorenzo Insigne, who had an excellent Euros, but like Goretzka, his contract is getting a little bit tight to the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of these players that are kind of not demanding, but requesting the higher wages, and it's in a sense a bit of a shame. Like, when you think of Insigne, you do picture Napoli. He's made nearly 400 appearances for the club. He's the captain, and as like Leon Goretzka, he's requesting higher wages. He's currently on around kind of just under 100,000 euros, so about £82,000. But given the fact he's 30, it's not really likely that he's going to get the wages that he kind of maybe wants or feels that he deserves. He has been interesting in Spurs, which, I mean, is questionable, I would say. I don't really know why they're going in for him, considering the players that they've got or signed. And Gazzetta dello Sport have claimed that he doesn't really want to leave Napoli this summer anyway, and would prefer, to leave on a free next year, which obviously gives him the choice of moving to, I would say, better clubs. I'm not saying Spurs is a bad club, but gives him the freedom to choose and handpick exactly where he wants to go. Even if he leaves this summer or next, he would still be an enormous loss to Spalletti's side. Not only is he the captain, but he's still performing at an extremely high level. 35 games last season, 19 goals and 7 assists. Obviously, the next top scorer was Lozano with 11, so there's quite a gap between goal scorers at Napoli. 4.1 shots, 2 key passes, 2 dribbles per 90. 0.54 expected goals per 90, which is the highest last season anyway, was the highest of his career to date. So at 30, he's requesting these wages, rightfully so if he's performing at his highest level. But obviously the club see it as he's over the hill. I don't know if it's worth the risk. But, I mean, with these kind of players, I do think it is worth the risk. If you're performing that high level at 30, he's a captain. Just give him. But The Athletic claim his relationship with De Laurentiis has come under strain in the last few seasons. So this is where we're actually seeing the behind the scenes, where the actual breakdown is why he might want to actually leave. But where would he best fit is a kind of big question. Obviously, he plays his best football on the left, but as we said before, Spurs, we've got Son, Heels coming in, so yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Dortmund, another good shout. Sancho's obviously left a lot of pressure on Marlon, who they got for a good price, so there's still money there to spend. And Royce is obviously extremely injury prone. And Insigne, if he does come in, would obviously score goals, would obviously get assists, and would obviously take burden off a lot of the attacking players. So it's a bit of an interesting one in terms of a great player for a great club wanting to potentially leave because they're not getting the wages. It happens a lot. You kind of see it with the Henderson situation at Liverpool, where it's like you don't really want this player to leave, but it probably makes sense to leave. So yeah, it's a bit of a sad one in my eyes.
Yeah, I think it's COVID, isn't it? Like all clubs are pretty tight financially, but yeah, as you said at the start, Insigne, he's one of the first players you think of when you think of Napoli, and he obviously, with Maradona's death last year, he was really involved with that and the renaming of the stadium, and he kept on revealing his shirt, etc. for goal celebrations. Like, he loves the club so much. But I'm kind of with you. I don't think Spurs makes a lot of sense, given they brought in Bryan Hill, which is obviously the future of their left wing position, although supposedly they're going to want to try him on the right wing as well. But Dortmund's an interesting shout, given Haaland, Moukoko, there's a lot of pressure on those two to deliver a lot of goals, and Marlon's coming in as well. And as you say, Royce has had his fair share of time on the sidelines as well. So we'll see what happens there with Dortmund. It doesn't feel like a very Dortmund signing, but potentially be good for a short-term deal there. Let's move on to Floj Aksob. Sorry if I've butchered your handle there. It was a difficult one to pronounce. He's suggested Ansu Fati. So basically, the last few weeks, as we know, Antoine Griezmann's future at Barcelona has looked less and less assured. Ousmane Dembele is currently in contract negotiations with the club. Depay's arrived, Aguero's arrived. It's going to be really congested at the top end of the pitch for Ronald Koeman in terms of the decisions he's got to make. So Ansu Fati's future probably doesn't look as certain as it did at the start of the window, at least until Griezmann leaves, if he does. He endured, obviously, a frustrating 2021 campaign. He was flying up until November, then got that knee injury and missed 44 games, which is a long, long time to be out of. It will take a long time for him to be back to his best as well. Meaning he only actually made 7 La Liga appearances last time. I actually thought it was more than that, but he did score 4 goals. He was carrying that Barcelona attack in parts prior to Messi's revival around sort of Christmas time. It obviously seems highly unlikely that Barcelona will want to sell Fati. He feels like one of their untouchables alongside Pedri and Frankie de Jong, but he has had interest from Man United and Dortmund in the past. He's obviously got 1 year left on his deal, but the club do hold a little bit more power with Fati than they do than Napoli and Bayern do with Goretzka and Insigne, because they do have an option of extending that by 2 years as well. And Marca claim that they are about to offer him increased terms to basically give him assurance, a bit of confidence ahead of the new season on the back of that injury as well. So it feels highly unlikely he would leave, but he is valued at 63 million euros. A bid of that would surely make them consider, given the sort of financial situation and jeopardy they currently find themselves in. In terms of where he would fit best, it's quite difficult to sort of think, really. I don't think that many clubs are short of a left winger right now. It's a position of strength across Europe, I would say. But I think Juventus, underneath Kulusevski and Chiesa, probably don't have the best backups in Bernardeschi, who has always performed much better for Italy than Juventus over the last 2 years. They've got Cuadrado, obviously, but he's performed as a right back over the last 18 months. And other than that, their wing options are pretty thin on the ground. So, maybe bringing in Ansu Fati if they could do it. Personally, I can't really see it. It seems like they're very, very short of cash this year, Juventus, as are a lot of the Italian clubs. And they're trying to sign Locatelli at the moment. So it feels unlikely, but maybe Ansu Fati to Juventus in the future wouldn't be the worst shout if Barcelona's finances don't recover. McCubs, let's move on to a player we had to mention in this section in Paul Pogba, despite the fact, you're probably quite bored of speculating about his future. Yeah. But there has been some interesting news from The Athletic about what the current situation is.
Yeah, well, the kind of most recent reports that they've, PSG have opened discussions with Pogba to gauge his interest. Haven't decided yet whether they'll try and sign him this summer or next. Apparently, the kind of COVID situation, obviously, I feel like it is probably likely that at some point there will be, fans will not be allowed in stadiums at some point in the upcoming season. In that case, obviously, there's revenue concerns. I think I think that's kind of probably what was stopping them going in for him last summer as well. Were they're kind of cutting costs, or their kind of endeavour to cut costs in the transfer market and whatnot. Obviously, they did next to nothing in the transfer market last summer. This summer, they've obviously been a lot more shrewd in terms of being able to secure players on frees, and especially if the players that they have signed on frees can hit the ground running and whatnot. I think that will give them a lot of confidence as to I guess it will kind of give the green light to the way that they've done business. And I think I'm sure they wouldn't balk at the idea of waiting another year for Pogba as well, especially if they can kind of get a kind of agreement in principle with him over a move next summer. Obviously that's easier said than done. But yeah, I think it's just it feels like it's been a long time coming, doesn't it, with Pogba at United? It feels like the kind of most likely it is going to happen. I feel like after all these kind of years of kind of bust ups with Raiola between the club and the agent, and all these things, I feel like if Pogba does leave United, it will be kind of on fairly. I don't know. I feel like it will end up being on fairly amicable terms. I feel like it's weird. Like you see all this kind of stuff on especially on Twitter over the last kind of couple of weeks of people kind of debating whether he's been a success or failure or whatnot. And I think the truth is, to be honest, he's been one of the club's best players since he signed. And I think he's been a pretty good servant, to be honest, over a 5-year period. Not been as consistent as people have thought, but I think if he were to leave at this point, I think you can kind of say that he's given a lot to the club. I imagine I'll probably get hate in the comments for that, but nevertheless, I think he still earned the right to have a move to another European superpower, and one which looks far more likely to be challenging for Champions League titles over the next 2-3 years. And I think he would be a massive success at PSG, no doubt about that. Going back to his, the club of his, of his home city. Obviously linking up with the likes of Mbappe and Neymar, and just playing for a manager in Mauricio Pochettino who gets the very best out of players. I don't know, like just a really exciting squad all round, isn't it? This PSG side, obviously Sergio Ramos coming in there this year. It just feels like there's now the impetus for this club to do really, really well. The club also have good ties with Raiola. Obviously, he represents Donnarumma and Verratti. Obviously, Zlatan, massively successful at PSG, wasn't he? Matuidi and Maxwell as well. So there's a lot to suggest that this deal can happen and can go fairly swimmingly for PSG. Obviously, I think the main advantage is as well is that there's just no competition, is there? Juve are, like you said, trying to sign Locatelli. They don't really have the money, I don't think, to be stumping up the kind of wages that Paul Pogba wants. And obviously, this is a sticking point for United as well. Do they put down the kind of £350,000-400,000 a week that Pogba is after? If he's now 28. The club have had a fairly bad record of giving like big contracts and long contracts to aging players in the past. Is that something they necessarily want to do with Pogba if there's the chance that they can get money for him this summer? But I guess that's what it will depend on, because I don't think United are going to want to lose him for free. To spend £90 million on a player and then lose him for free 5 years later seems pretty illogical. So I feel like I feel like they'll just do everything within their power to not lose him for free, and to not lose him as well, because he is still an essential part of this side, and especially after the signings made this summer. I think losing Pogba would then be another little step back, in what is currently a kind of process of building a squad that wants to challenge for titles. So yeah, I think PSG, if they are going to get him, will probably have to sign him this summer. I can't, for some reason I just can't see him. I can't see him going for free.
Yeah, he's in quite a strong position with PSG's interest in terms of getting the best contract that he can possibly get as well from United, unless United basically just accept next summer, now is the time, given that he's 28, given that the fact he's playing on the left wing towards the end of last year, he's not probably going to play in a midfield three with Bruno. It's not in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's makeup to be that attacking. That this is maybe the time to sell him if the right size bid comes in, if he's not going to sign a new deal, because as you say, losing him for free would be an absolute travesty of a player of that quality as well. Thinking of signings that are close to be completed or could well be completed, Zeus 1882X suggests Nikola Milenkovic, and Fabrizio Romano came out this week and said that the fact that there is a chance that Spurs will be able to sign Christian Romero and Milenkovic this summer. I did though see that Barcelona were also looking around at Romero, as well, which is a little bit of a dampener as well, but I'm not quite sure how they've got the funds and the wage and the space in their wage bill to be able to do that. But back to Milenkovic, basically Charlie Eccleshare, the Athletic Spurs reporter, has pointed out he's got a year left on his deal. Apparently a bid of around 15 million euros to Fiorentina should be enough to land him this summer. It should be relatively straightforward. 15 million euros would be an absolute snip for Milenkovic, in my opinion. Tutu Mercato claimed that the chances of him staying in Florence are absolutely minimal now. And he was performing at a very, very high level at a pretty average Fiorentina side last year. 34 Serie A appearances, 3 goals, 1 assist. He's a real threat from set pieces. He's 6'5". Very good tackle success rate, over 80%. Obviously very good in the air, nearly 80% on that as well. Very solid passer as well, can play in a back three, can play on the right-hand side as well at right back if completely necessary. And he'd be, a massively good addition to that Spurs backline. I feel like this is just quite a sensible signing. Paratici's links in Serie A should be able to get this done as well. So I'm hopeful that Nikola Milenkovic and Christian Romero will both be arriving at Spurs. And if they bring in Brian Hill, well, they've already brought in Brian Hill as well. That's got to go down as a pretty successful summer, especially if they manage to keep hold of Harry Kane as well. So we shall see. In terms of other options, James, there's loads of other players that have got 1 year left on their deal. From Kessié, Paulo Dybala, although I did see Max Allegri saying that he wanted to sign a new deal. Sabitzer, Brozovic, Lorenzo Pellegrini, Antonio Rudiger, Tolisso, Lacazette. Do you think any of these players with your City hat on are right for City? And where do you see any of these players potentially moving to? Do you think any of them will sign new deals, etc.?
I don't think... Obviously, from a Man City perspective, all our targets are pretty obvious, and I don't see us really venturing outside of those. I do feel a left back would be more sensible, but considering what we could be getting, having Zinchenko at left back and focusing on that, I'm perfectly happy with. So in terms of the list that you've just provided, and I can't see Man City really getting involved in anyone. One of the names that kind of stood out to me on this list is Rudiger, just for the fact that I always say that I don't like Rudiger the way he plays, but I know every Chelsea fan will. He's one of these players you absolutely love him if he's in your club, but you hate him if he's not in your club. He's extremely dirty. Well, not extremely dirty, but he's a lack of a better phrase, Hauser. He just winds you up, winds the players up, and is actually a good defender. So I'm very.
Is this the De Bruyne challenge? Is it?
No. Well, I actually hadn't thought about that, but it's just his general play. He's just extremely physical, and he just sits on the line of a yellow or red card at all times, and it must be exciting. But I'm very surprised to see him because he is like a good defender. He's a very physical, strong. I'm not too sure how old he is, but I can't imagine him being too old. So
I think he's 28, 29.
Okay. Well, it does make sense then that that he has only got 1 year left on his contract. But the fact that Zuma looks to be on the go, Thiago Silva's not that old, it surprises me that Chelsea, who are extremely good at doing business, haven't just tied him down just for reassurance. Lacazette as well on this list. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes this summer or next. I think he's probably... I would feel a bit fed up at Arsenal. I can't see where his ambitions really lie. I'd be happy... If I was in his shoes, I'd be happy to leave. I'd probably try and go back to France and enjoy football for a bit, because obviously he's not young. And I think for Arsenal to progress, they don't need Lacazette. So maybe getting a bit of cash in might help. But yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, because a lot of these players are extremely good. Sabitzer was, target for a lot of clubs last season, mainly Tottenham, and is a quality player. Dybala, Kessié, I think COVID has really messed up a lot of transfer business from last year, and I think we will see a lot of players leaving for free in the next 3, 4, 5 years, mainly because clubs just don't have the funds that they used to anymore, and won't in the future, because obviously we will see a loss of revenue from match day tickets and this, that and the other. So I think we're in danger of having this conversation every year, and the list's getting incredibly better in terms of quality of player.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, to be fair. I mean, the quality on this list, I'm looking down at it. I mean, Lorenzo Pellegrini, for example, I think we've talked about him for a move for a couple of years now. Obviously, he had that release clause as well, was linked with Arsenal, but they seem to be going back in for Odegaard. But he's a phenomenal player. Brozovic as well, we talked about last week on Continental Club. I mean, are you like James? Are you quite surprised by the quality of player that they seem to be taking their future into their own hands?
I guess so. I feel like it's not out of the question. I mean, I feel like most years, especially we're talking about contracts that are up, next June, and there's time for these to be renewed. And I think one of the other kind of key developments, which I find funny, because I remember maybe kind of 2-3 years ago, it would always be a bit of a kind of running thing of whenever a rumour about a swap deal came out, we would be very quick to be kind of well, swap deals just never happen, so it's not going to happen. I think there was probably about one swap deal, high profile swap deal, that happened between 2010 and 2018, and now it's just become the norm, because you've got players running down contracts, you've got clubs who can't afford the full the full fee that other clubs are demanding for players, and then you've got clubs who do also need a reinforcement to come in if they lose said player, and obviously the process of then negotiating a fee with another club and negotiating wages, and whether on a tight budget, suddenly swap deals become incredibly good ideas for a number of clubs. So I think that's going to be something we probably see more of again in the next 2-3 years. I feel like swap deals are just becoming a far more normal way to do business, which is kind of fun in some ways. Although we want to be seeing less, obviously, of the kind of Artur Pjanic stuff. Yeah. That was just a kind of incredibly depressing move, wasn't it? But
one for the balance sheet.
But we will see more of that kind of stuff. But I mean, there are a number of really, really promising pickups on that list. I think Marcelo Brozovic is an interesting one. I think he's currently trying to thrash out a deal with Inter Milan. I think he wants to stay, but I don't even think his wage demands are that high. And for a player of his caliber, I think a club in a better financial situation could quite easily come in for him. I wanted him at United in the past. I don't know if he's quite the perfect profile of defensive midfield that the club needs right now, but I think any side in need of a defensive midfielder who can also really kind of spring balls around and has a good passing range and can get involved creatively, I think he'd be a really good player to try and go in for in the next month.
Yeah, he'd be absolutely brilliant. I love Brozovic. One final player to mention just before we go, I wanted to give a shout out to K4 Duwaish. His suggestion of Boubacar Kamara. Obviously, Monaco have made a €15 million bid for Marseille's central midfielder. They've had that rejected. He can play at centre-back as well. He's been on our radar for a little while. I remember him being brought up, can't remember who by, but on the Extra Time podcast about 2.5 years ago. But it was excellent for Marseille last term. 35 Ligue 1 appearances, 3.6 tackles and interceptions, 1 dribble. Really high work rate as well. 16 pressures per game, very successful presser as well, 35% success rate on his press. So if Monaco could get him, that would suggest that Aurélien Tchouameni maybe is leaving the club, so he'd be a perfect replacement there. But Marseille have done some slyly very good business so far this window, so shout out to them. And Ligue 1 looks like it's going to be a fascinating race next season. Guys, we want to know which one of these deals that we've potentially talked about, Goretzka, Insigne, Pogba, Milenkovic, do you see actually happening? Let us know in the comments down below, and let's move on to our quickfire question. Our quickfire question comes in from Scotty Reborn. Fellow Scott, love it. Are you watching the Olympics? And if so, what is your favourite event? Macabs, we were talking before Wayno came on the call before we started rolling, that you've been enjoying the Olympics.
Yeah, I've been trying to watch it. I've been trying to kind of work half in my room, half in the living room, and just so I can catch a bit of it. So yeah, I have been enjoying it, kind of in the kind of bits that I've been kind of half watching. Yeah, I'm trying to think what events. I mean, it's been good. Obviously, from a GB perspective, it's been great to see like so many British winners in the swimming pool. Like that's just like kind of growing up watching the Olympics. That always just seemed to be something that the UK generally kind of failed in, and it was just you'd just be watching kind of Australian swimmers plus Michael Phelps just kind of take home gold in almost every race. The Taekwondo is probably the new sport that I've been most fascinated by. I've never actually seen Taekwondo in action before.
They get their feet so high.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I do remember actually when I was younger, so I think it was like at school or something, some Taekwondo person came in and taught us a few moves or whatnot. But since then, have no experience of it. But yeah, it's mad. It's mad how high the foot goes. But also, it's just like with all those combat sports, it's like I just find it so funny because it's like I really have no idea what's going on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because you think they've got a hit, and then it's like, no, they don't have a hit, and then you don't, and then you don't, like, and then it's like you get like little punches to the stomachs and whatnot. It's just like it's so difficult to get used to. But nevertheless, it's fascinating. And there's like the gamjon, which is like the kind of foul or whatever. If you like make a mistake and you lose points, and you could lose like 1 to 3 points or something like that. Forgive me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think that's been the one. And then I don't know, like skateboarding was quite fun to watch as well. Just mad how like it was mad how like all the like was it like all three who made the podium in one of the women's categories.
Oh, well, like under the age of 16.
Yeah, they were all 13.
Love it.
Like how mad is that? And then there was that Brazilian girl who like was like her Vine was like
Vine, yeah.
It was like viewed loads like 5 years ago of her like probably like as an 8-year-old like doing some kickflip in a tutu, and now she's like an Olympic medalist. So yeah, there's been some good stories in that sense.
Wayne, I heard you say something about Messi.
Oh no, just saying the Taekwondo, all the kind of combat sports. I expect when you hear them, I don't know, I just expect it to look cleaner than it is. Yeah. It just like some of the I can't remember which sport exactly it was, but it just looked like two blokes just kicking each other as high as they could, and just it just looked way more messy than I kind of ever imagined. Every time the Olympics comes about, I see it, and I'm just like, yeah, this looks a mess. This is a mess. I expect it to be a lot more elegant than this. But I've loved the skateboarding. I've loved the fact that skateboarding is actually in it now, mainly because I know it will do wonders. Because like for me, a lot of the sports are not. It's harsh to say, but they're not really that interesting. You only watch them because the Olympics is on. So when it comes to skateboarding is huge, and the fact it hasn't got the recognition of like being an Olympic sport in the past, kind of. Yeah, well, the fact it has it now, just I absolutely love it. I think it's brilliant, and the fact that all the competitors are so young, it's just amazing to me. But the thing I've been watching the most, I don't know what the exact name of it is, but it's like the 3-on-3 women's basketball.
Yeah, that's wicked.
It's so intense. It's so good. Yeah, just the fact it's just non-stop, and I like a lot of the sports.
I haven't watched that yet. I need to watch that.
Oh yeah, and it's isn't like a 12-second shot clock,
yeah,
so you've got to get a shot
always
away every 12
clock.
seconds.
There's always a shot clock.
Yeah,
but the fact it's half the court, it's like street basketball. It's like if street football was an Olympic sport.
FIFA Street.
It's really fun. What else have I been watching? I watched a bit of the gymnastics, and I can't remember the woman's name. I always
Simone Biles.
Yeah, just the height on. I don't know the name. I don't know any of the names of the what they're actually called. But the ones where you're on a big mat, it's a bit springy, and you run from one corner to the other, do
vault.
a flip, then do a little dance, and then do
like
another
the floor.
run and the floor.
Yeah.
If that's
The floor. Okay, yeah, that is cool.
The height, the sheer height that she gets was just ridiculous. Obviously a shame that she's pulled out, but you can't question why, and hopefully she's all right in terms of her mental health and whatnot.
I didn't realise just how it was one of the thing that kind of like opened my eyes to it a lot was that you don't realise just how bad the injuries you can get from gymnastics if you're not in the right headspace. Like it's mad. And there's an American gymnast who was I think she was only 14 in the 96 Olympics, and she had to go on the floor after basically hitting her head downwards on the bar thing, and she just had to carry on. And she I think she was on Twitter yesterday saying how she wishes that she didn't have to do that, and that there was it's pretty mad. It just kind of, I don't know, when you see kind of other sports people being like, oh, I wouldn't let down my team, it's like, well, yeah, but you play us, potentially damaging your spine is different from a broken toe, isn't it? The thing is that's a call out to Diddy Harman. I saw he was getting a little bit of flack yesterday for talking about his broken toe, but I'm sure he's a nice guy nonetheless.
Oh, fair. Yeah, no, it's called. I think it's called the twisties, when you lose, lose awareness in the air of how many twists you've done. And it's a silly name for something that's.
I thought it was a new sport you were telling me about.
No. It's really serious. It's a silly name for something that's really serious, where you lose awareness of how many turns you've done in the air.
God.
And it can be life threatening. So if she wasn't feeling herself and was worried about that, then fair play, step away from it. I'm most excited about the Athletics starting, which starts tomorrow as this goes out. It starts on Saturday. Dina Asher-Smith, who I really, she's absolutely brilliant. I think she won silver at the last World Championships in 2019. She's going for a gold medal tomorrow in the women's 100 metres. Cannot wait to watch that. Just before the Lions kick off at 5:30. Obviously not an Olympic sport as well. So hell of a weekend in my isolation. There's going to be a lot of sport being watched. But guys, thank you so much for watching Continental Club for this week. It's been another great show. Thank you very much, Wayno, for stepping in for Henry Hill.
That's always.
I hope you've enjoyed it. You did an excellent job. If the fans have enjoyed this video, though, what should they go and watch now?
So this will be going out on a Friday, I believe. So tomorrow, keep your eyes peeled for a Mbappe Explained on this channel, where we talk about the real price of Kylian Mbappe. And obviously, contracts up in the air, so very interesting.
Nice. Anything from you, McCubs?
I wrote an Explained this week, and I can't remember what it was about. I can't remember.
Memorable stuff.
My mind is absolutely gone today. Apologies to any viewers at home if I've appeared a bit brain dead. What did you say, Dukes?
Memorable stuff, I said.
Oh yeah.
Was it about Chelsea?
That was it.
Chelsea selling their youth.
The reason why they're selling all their youth. It's actually quite an interesting one. Just about their kind of youth policy. I didn't realise actually until kind of putting pen to paper just how many young players they've sold this summer, aside from Guehi and Tomori. So yeah, potentially a kind of new era of kind of young players kind of taking the initiative more and getting themselves permanent moves rather than being loaned out for years on end. So yeah, interesting stuff going on at Chelsea at the moment.
Love it. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to smash that like button. If this video gets 5,000 likes, maybe we'll have a special guest on next week's Continental Club. Who knows? So smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.